Okay, so over to you.
Right, hi everybody. I asked if you checked on the chats section that as we step into the room, if we may just, just using one word, share where we are, how we're feeling. And there is a reason for that. It's not just me being nieuwsgierig and curious about everybody, which I always am, but I'm aware that especially as we work via our devices and not in the same physical space, face to face, there are a lot of distractions that we have. So my invitation to all of us is to really be mindful of what those distractions might be. Sometimes the distractions are things on the outside, right? It's the neighbor's dog barking, it's the child wanting something from you, it is your mom asking you to do something for her, and the list can go on. But very often, the interruptions and the distractions are also internal. It's how we're feeling at a given moment and not, acknowledging the feeling and trying to kind of brush it off and pretend it's not there, but it keeps creeping up into what we're trying to focus on. So I'm seeing quite a few similar emotions here. I certainly have stepped into today feeling very excited about the day. I see Tabi says she's excited, happy is Valerie, thankful, present, grateful, which is really what I think invites us to be in a place where we are focused. But maybe somebody's feeling frustrated, maybe they're feeling, I don't know, flustered. There's a lot going on, not only in our own homes, but communities and the country and beyond our borders. So however you might be feeling, say hello to the feeling and say, hello feeling, I acknowledge you. But for the next while, I'm going to be fully present with my circle of sisters, because today we're going to be sharing something that we can learn from one another. And so you say feeling, park a little bit, I'll come back to you, but give me 2 hours while I focus on something else for now. And that's really why I want us to step into the room and acknowledge that. Right, so please be encouraged. If you couldn't quite think of one word, you are welcome to put stuff on the chat line as we move along. So are we ready? Can I hear a yay? And this is always the tricky thing, right, with online or virtual learning. I can't see you, but I can certainly hear you. So I'm going to invite, I love it when I hear people's voices. So if you can hear me, if you are with me, can I hear a yay? And if you say nay, hey, awesome. We are here. I was going to say, if you don't hear me, you can say nay, but I'd be also being very silly with that, because if you can say nay, it means you can still hear me. So any sound is welcome. So wonderful to have you all as my sisters here with us. Rita, I don't know if you want to put up the, I'll call it, I think of it as a prayer, right? It is something we say
what
together.
We all think of it as.
It's not just a poem, it's a prayer. It is a desire and a hope and a way of moving together that we have for one another. So if we can give it a second. What I'm going to ask is this, Rita, are you happy for me to do it slightly different to how we normally do it?
Absolutely, yes.
I'm going to ask one of the ladies, and I'd like one of the mentors. I think Ntebogang, you are here with us. Can I hear your voice, please, Ntebo?
Oh, yes, I'm here.
There you are. I'm going to ask Ntebogang to read it for us. And I want the rest of us, while she's reading this prayer, for all of us just to listen and to take the words in. At the end of Ntebogang's recitation of the poem or the prayer, I then want all of us to say the words together. I am my sister's keeper. Ntebo, please lead us.
I am my sister's keeper. Like, I don't understand. Wait, am I gonna read it, then you say it after me, or should I just read it all
you carry on and you read the whole thing. And at the end, we all affirm the words with I am my sister's keeper.
Oh, all right.
So please lead.
I am my sister's keeper. I will build my sister. I will encourage her for her and pray for her. I have no reason to talk about her, be jealous of her, or to compete with her. I'm going to stand behind her and help push her into her destiny.
And we say all together, I am my sister's keeper.
I am my sister's keeper.
I am my sister's keeper.
Encourage her, empower, and pray for.
I have no reason to talk about her.
Tear her down.
Tear down or keep it up.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to stand behind her.
Great, thank you for that, ladies. So thank you, Ntebogang, for leading us. And I just wanted the rest of us just to really take in the words, because sometimes as you read or recite something, you may miss the message. And I just wanted us to listen. But we all are each other's keepers. So part of my excitement, everyone, isn't just, the fact that I have the honor today of facilitating.
Sorry, Mabat, could we just ask everyone who is not
Yes,
talking?
I wanted to do that. If people can please mute their mics, I would appreciate that. Fantastic. I'm not hearing any feedback, so I'm going to take it that mics have been muted. Thank you so much, Rita. So my excitement, ladies, as I was saying, isn't just, having the honor of facilitating today, but I'm especially thrilled that we have a guest speaker amongst us today, Amonge Sinxoto, whose video you would have watched. So you have a little bit of the backstory about who she is and what she does. And I think for us, as Rita and I engaged with her earlier in the week, I just got even more excited just, listening to a voice of somebody who is young. I think the voice of somebody who I'm hoping and I know for sure will resonate with especially our mentees, but I think with all of us as women who are forging their way and trying to lead in the different environments in which we find ourselves. So we've got Amonge as our guest speaker for today. But before we get to Amonge's talk, I just want to really just chart us through the journey that we have traveled together. It's a story, right? This mentorship program is not just a program for me, and I think for all of us. It really is us creating a story. And at every turn, there's a new narrative we bring in, a new part of the story, as it were. And so it's important as we move along to just stop for a little while and say, where have we been and where are we going? To acknowledge the learnings, the gains we have made before we jump full force into what is new and fresh for the day. So we started by getting to know one another. Unfortunately, I missed this session, but I believe this was the first and only face-to-face session we had as a circle here, when we really came together to say, how do we even begin to start opening up and being vulnerable and sharing with one another if we don't really yet have an inkling of who we are? And so the first session was all about trust. You were asked, I think, to come in with openness, with honesty, knowing that all the sisters in the circle are with you, they stand for you. We are all about each other. And so that opening up was so that we would be in a position as we move along that we can get deeper into our work together and really just get to appreciate and know one another. It was really about building courage, because it does take courage to stand amongst a group of, whether it's other women or in a community, even in our families, and really be honest about who we are. And that courage is what then was invited in the next session when we did courageous leadership. The point of the story that we are all creating together isn't just for its own sake, right? It's a story where we are building our leadership muscle. None of us ever arrive, by the way, as leaders. I cannot say because I lead, I know everything there is. Rita, Valerie, Ntabi, all the mentors on this program can never ever, while we all lead in different ways, respectively in different environments, we never arrive. So this is a collective learning for all of us. And so when we are being called to courageous leadership, it's not just for you as mentees, it's for the entire group. So courageous leadership, we looked at examples of really powerful young women. Malala, we talked about Yusuf Z, we talked about Greta Thunberg as well. You would remember then that, I know some of you call her Auntie Asnath. Auntie Asnath came and gave a really inspiring talk about her beginnings as a young person, right? She situated her whole story, I think, where she was as a young person. And I think that really spoke to many of us. Age aside, I think her story really just gave us a lot of encouragement that don't give up, don't give in. You are not where you come from, and how you start is not how you're going to end. So I think a lot of empowerment came out of that. Then session 3, we stepped into the art of communication. Now that I am being courageous, now that I really want to take on a cause, how do I make other people listen, right? And we discovered that really there are 3 things when we talk about the art of communication. Is my message clear? Am I persuasive because I believe what I'm sharing with the world? Am I inspiring? Do I breathe life into the places where I am? And do I want other people to come with me? Now, negotiation, as we've said, I think on the different WhatsApp platforms, is really a stretch. I'm building my muscle as a communicator, but I want to focus now on a particular forum of communication, a particular platform where I'm being to communicate in a particular way, and negotiation is what it's about today. We asked all of us to please watch the video by Professor Kesley Hong from Harvard Kennedy School. And today, really, our discussion is around that framework, the YOU, or the U framework that she took us through. We've asked Amonge not to talk to the framework per se, but to really take us through her journey of, how she's had to negotiate, how she's had, to really chart her way through and engage with different people as she brought her initiative of Blackboard to life. And we will get to that in a little while. Also, just parking on Amonge's session, which I will introduce in a bit, is as you listen to her, mentees and mentors, jot down a note in the comment section or the chat box, a question perhaps you want to ask, because Amonge will speak for a little bit and then allow us some time before she leaves the call for us to engage directly with her via questions and any comments that may come to us. So if a thought pops into your head, either put it in your notebook or put it on the chat box. I have said a lot, but I need us to spark a little bit of fire, right? Get our creative juices going, because creativity is what it's all about before I jump into the gist and the nitty-gritty of today's session. Right, does everybody have a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil with them? Could be a notebook even that you've brought with you. Yay, 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 can I get a yay?
Yay.
Yay, I'm hearing one yay. Yay!
Because most
More
of us
yays.
Yay!
Okay, everybody's got something. Thank you, yay, I love it. A pen or a pencil and a piece of paper, because we're going to play a little bit, and please allow me my little bit of madness. You will see as we move along why this play is important. Right, are you ready? Here's what we're gonna do. On your piece of paper, with your pen or your pencil, I want you please to draw a circle. Don't overthink anything, just do it very quickly as the circle comes to you. Fantastic. Now, I want you to draw another circle on the piece of paper. And then, on the first circle that you drew, I want you to now draw 2 triangles. You can attach them wherever, it's up to you, on the first circle. Got that? Great. While you are on that first circle, I want you to draw 3 smaller circles inside that circle. So those 3 smaller circles must fit inside that first circle. You got your small 3 circles, yeah? Okay. And then I'm going to stay still with that circle. I would like you please to draw a line inside the circle. Right, so you've got your circle, it's got 2 triangles, it's got 3 smaller circles inside, and it's got a line. Now, let's do something with the second circle. similar story here. To that second circle, I would like you to please draw 2 triangles that are attached to that circle. Right, you've got your 2 triangles. Now please draw a line that is attached to the second circle. I love Ntabiseng's face. Right, so you've got that. Okay, here ends our exercise, practicing our inner Picasso, as it were. Right, or maybe it's our inner Nelson Makamo, I don't know, whichever one comes to you. Right, so I'm gonna ask, and I know not everybody has video on, but I would love to see the different pictures that emerged out of what I asked us to do. Rita, can I start with you? Can you show us what you've got? Aha! Okay, looks very suspiciously like a cat. Okay, so Rita's got a cat. Thank you very much. I love it. Frame that, frame that.
I know. I actually want to take a picture of this. Andy, so you need to take pictures of this.
Ndebukhan, what have you got? I see Ndebukhan's got something there. I don't know if everybody can see her. Do we have to switch off our videos for somebody else's video? On Ndebukhan, because I want everyone to see Ndebukhan's one. How do we make sure everyone can see her?
I think you go to the gallery view and you should be able to see.
Ah, okay.
Where's Ndebukhan though? I don't. Oh, I see. Yeah, but I can't see it clearly. Okay, if you do speaker view and she says something, we can see it clearer.
Okay. There we go. I can see it now. Thank you very much. Natasha, did you draw something? So that's not a cat for sure. But it's got all the things I asked for, right? Fantastic. Andiswa? Is Andiswa going to share hers there?
Oh, I couldn't share. I'm the media. I'm taking pictures.
Okay, cool. That's fine. Yavini, what have you got? Okay, very similar to Natasha's one. Okay. I wonder who else came up with a cat like Rita? Are there other cats in there? Val?
What does it say about you psychologically if you make a cat?
Okay, Val has something completely different. It's like two sweet rappers, okay? Kini? Okay, I'm not sure. Okay, Tahira's popping up something for us to see. Can we see that, please, Tahira? Okay, a bit. Okay, I can't quite make out what's there.
Yeah.
Amonge, did you play along with us?
There's Tahira. I think it's clearer now.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, it's much better.
Not very creative like the cat. I kind of just did exactly what you asked for.
Okay, I'm gonna refute that I'm not creative because all of us are creative, by the way.
In the own
Okay,
way.
Tahira, look, Tahira's got a cat. So okay. So okay, I'm gonna stop with that because I know all of us are gonna have something different. And here's I suppose the method behind my madness and why I was asking you to draw this. At no point did I say we were drawing a cat. I just gave instructions, and somewhere along the way, people put together something from experience or something from how they might draw a cat, and they put together a cat. So Tahira's got a cat, Rita's got a cat, and I'm not sure who else might have the same. And yet another, a group of people just kind of drew circles, circles together, triangles attached somewhere with a line. Vala, I think, did 2 sort of very different structures, 2 separate structures that in my mind are kind of like sweet wrappers, but I don't know if they reflect anything else. We're going to be talking about negotiation today, right? And so Natasha says, what is the psychological understanding? I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not even going to attempt to psychoanalyze anyone. But what I do know for sure, just even as a human being who is living, breathing, experiencing life every day, is that all of us bring our experience, our stories, our way of looking at the world into anything that we learn. we all bring our bias into how we learn and do things, right? So the minute I said, draw this, you know, Rita started thinking, okay, sounds like how a cat would be coming together, right? And so that's what emerged for her, and similarly for Tahira. But for other people, the instructions could have meant anything. And so everybody's picture is the right thing. As long as you drew all of those pieces, it's the right thing. Now we come into a space where we talk about negotiation. Each of us steps into the negotiation process with some kind of bias, with some kind of story, with some kind of worldview. And if we say we want the negotiation to be constructive and productive, then we need to be mindful, firstly, of our own biases and worldview, just as we need to be aware that the other person brings in a story and a worldview and an experience, right? And so the process of negotiating becomes about us. It's about my gain and your gain. It's not a zero-sum game. In other words, it's not I grab everything and you lose totally. It's hopefully a meeting of minds and of hearts. So my little funny, you know, instructions were really bringing us to an awareness that there is a diversity of thought in this circle, but also a mindfulness that wherever you may need to negotiate, acknowledge the diversity of others and work with what you have. Right, I'm going to park it there for a minute. Rita, am I right to jump? Because again, I'm watching the time. I know that we had said, you know, we want the ladies to bring in just some of what was learned previously in communication. But I think after the activity today, I'll try and pull in previous lessons into that, because I'm feeling rather greedy, if you like, to really hear Amonge's story and to allow for as many questions and comments and insights from the rest of the group. So we don't, you know, I don't want to be stingy with that because, you know, we don't have speakers all the time. So let's take full advantage of having Amonge here with us. So with that, I am going to invite Amonge to share her story with us. And as I said, and as you are aware, she is, you know, a young, I'll call her a young entrepreneur, a young creative. So don't you dare say you're not creative, Amonge. She is the creator and founder of an initiative called Blackboard. In her talk, I believe Amonge will tell us a little bit more about that. But really what we also are hoping to hear is, Amonge, how did you navigate your way through bringing Blackboard to life? Who were the people that you had to engage with, and what were you selling in a sense that they had to buy, and how did you make them buy into it? So Amonge, please, we're all looking forward to it. Step into the circle and share your story with us.
Hi everyone. Like my Batu shared, my name's Amonge. I just want to check that everyone can hear me, just like thumbs up or anything, just to make sure that cool.
Yay! Yay! Can
okay,
we give Amonge a yay?
Yay! Okay, cool. I'll just jump into it, and I kind of just speaking a lot to what my Batu has shared. I want to share my story with you, but I think there's really no formula to this whole leadership thing. I think it's everybody's personal journey that you go through. So I'm sharing this with you, not to say this is how I did it, this is how you succeed, to say this is how I went about it, and hopefully it can save you some trouble, or you know what I mean, like you can take lessons from that. So yeah. Yeah, I think right now I think I just want to focus on two major points in my life that were big negotiations, but really had an effect on the way in which I interacted with the world around me, in terms of a personal capacity, in terms of, you know, the way I ran my organization. These two, like, negotiations, I could say, really did do a lot in terms of shifting my thinking. So the first one was when I was about 15 years old. And I say that it's the first one, but it's really not. We negotiate every day of our lives, because negotiation is essentially making something happen through discussion or through persuasion, etc. So, I mean, we've been negotiating since we were children. When a child wants you to do something, wants you to change their diaper, wants you to feed them, they cry. That's their way of communicating. So, I mean, negotiation has been a part of our lives for a really, really long time. And I don't want you to think that it's only something that you're going to start doing when. Like, it's something that you should be practicing very actively right now in whatever space that you can. So I say it's the first, but I say that because it was the first time I was actually very, very like aware of the fact that I was negotiating. So I was 15 years old at the time and just doing a lot of reflection around my personal experience growing up in Joburg. And I honestly think I wasn't very happy, you know. We're supposed to be like this whole born free generation, and I wasn't really comfortable with that idea. An environment where I'm not supposed to speak my mother tongue, I'm not allowed to wear my hair the way that it naturally like grows out of my head. And I know these things sound like small things, but they really shaped the way in which I valued my identity, a massive part of my identity, my Blackness, my Africanness. And I wasn't really happy with the fact that, you know, the system that I was in terms of, you know, my schooling environment really made an effort to not prioritize that. And it really shaped the way I was thinking, and I wasn't really happy with this. So as I was just speaking with my peers, I'm just realizing that this is not just me. Young people all across the world, Africans specifically, are making changes to themselves and kind of shifting who they are in an attempt to fit into a norm or a mold or a culture that isn't our own. And I just thought, you know, we're in South Africa. You know, we're on our turf. This is our territory, so to speak, but we're still playing by someone else's rules. So that's kind of how the concept of Blackboard Africa came to life. So Blackboard Africa is a nonprofit company that is all about making sure young people have access to leadership and mentorship. But we're also really about giving new direction to young people through these fundamental knowledge around identity and self, but through the training and the mentorship, etc. So I just thought about how I could do that, and at the time, it was starting an Instagram page. It was a very small step, not a small step. Let me not reduce it, but it was a very scary step, but social media is kind of my realm. It's where we as young people are, we know, we understand, we work and operate in that space all the time. So I just thought, hey, this is my resource, this is my opportunity to kind of push forward into something that I know and really, really understand. So we started with an Instagram page, and young people just kept on writing in, you know, their stories and just their experiences growing up and kind of what challenges they've been facing. And they did that through different articles, and they did poetry, people did photography. It was really, really all about creative expression. So that was really incredible. But then we kind of started to move into a space of focusing on leadership. So yes, identity is essential in terms of figuring out who you are as a person, and if you don't know who that is, then you know your ability or your capacity to lead is a little bit hindered. So that's a major starting point, but I think we're moving into the phase where we really wanted to develop people in terms of those leadership skills. So we wanted to do our first event, and that was a massive headache because I was 15 and I was running it with my cousin who's I think 22, and you know, when you're thinking around negotiating, and like I said, this is the first time I really was like aware of the fact that I was negotiating, you have to be very, very intentional. So first of all, you've got to know who you're negotiating to, like who are you talking to? And secondly, you need to find a common thread between yourself and the person you're negotiating with. So I'll make a silly example of like, when I was in high school, I would always ask my mom to like go out with my friends. But the way I did that was I would always be like, hey mom, how's your friend Julie? Like, is she okay? How are her kids? And just when she starts to think, oh no, how are my friends? She asked me about my friends. And then I'm like, oh, well, also, can I please go out? So I think you find a way to connect with people, because that's how they're actually going to listen. So yeah, I think we identified that for our very first event, the three sort of people that we wanted to have our conversation with was firstly our parents, because we had no money, like literally nothing. So I mean, we needed their support and their support of us in this journey of ours. And then secondly, our partners, because as much as my parents really did give so much, there's certain things that, you know, we just could not afford: venue, food, etc. So you need to find partners. But even that, we could have pulled together a beautiful event, but if we had no participants, there would have really been nothing there. So it was about our parents, our partners, and our friends, and finding the common thread between all of those people that would make them want to be in this space, and also not just want to be in the space, but recognize why a space like this is important. And it was crazy because the feedback from that first event was just absolutely through the roof, and we were just overwhelmed. I think I knew that, you know, we were creating the spaces because it was something that I wanted, something that I needed, but I had no idea the ways in which it could start to affect other people. So yeah, that was crazy amazing. And just going on from that, we kept on doing our different programs. We got new partners and bigger and better partners, not better partners, all of our partners were incredible. But I just think we really started to grow, and a lot more people started to identify with our vision. But like I said, you need to be very, very clear from the get-go, you know, what that is, because there was a period in our foundation where, you know, we partnered with people who we might not have partnered with if we could go back, so to speak. I just think if you know your vision and you know your purpose, and you make sure that you do not waver from that, or at least you have people in your life to hold you accountable to that, then I think it's going to be really easy to deter, you know, which way to go, who to partner with, who not to, etc. So yeah, that was my first like negotiation where I was super, super aware of my surroundings and my situation. And then the second one was, yeah. So I was in matric at the time, literally, I think it was a week before my final exams. And I'm sitting and I know I get this email. I know I shouldn't look at it because I'm not supposed to be on a break or whatever, but I'm like, no, let me just look at it now. And it's this email from Black Girls Rock saying that they're inviting me to this roundtable discussion with Michelle Obama. And I think I actually just sat there in silence for like 5 minutes thinking, I had no words. But at the same time, I was very overwhelmed by, I knew it was something that I wanted. And I was like, yes, it has to happen. But I was overwhelmed by kind of the odds. I had no flights, no accommodation. My exams were in a week's time. I mean, it just seemed like a really, really impossible feat. So I went to my parents. My dad straight off the bat said, absolutely not. Just focus on exams, get it out of your head. My mom agreed with him in the moment, but then she actually pulled me to the side afterwards and was like, you definitely have to go. We have to make this happen. And I think she really helped me. And like I said, it's really important to have people in your life who are kind of going to be your support structure, because when I got those first no's from my dad, I was like, okay, it's done. There's no reason to tell anybody. There's no reason to even talk about it because it's not going to happen. I should really just give up on it. But then when my mom came up to me and she was like, it's insane to give up an opportunity like this. I mean, how many people get to sit in a table with Michelle Obama? Like, how can we have to make this happen? And it actually happened by a fluke that I told one of my friends, and he told his dad, and his company ended up sponsoring my trip to the US, so that I can be a part of that discussion. And I think at this time, I was doing a lot of traveling. I was doing a lot of representing Blackboard Africa. I was attending a lot of leadership programs to upskill our program as well. But honestly, I was really, really excited about how my CV was growing. I was like, ooh, all these ticks, these balances, these checks, like, yes, I love it. It's great. And then I got there, and Michelle Obama basically said, take away all the pens, the papers. I mean, we had questions and all of this stuff, and we weren't allowed to bring any of our notepads, our phones, nothing into the conversation. She just wanted to have a conversation with us. And she was like, you know, I value you as individuals, as, you know, as people, as beings. So I just want to have a conversation. I want to have an interaction with you. And for me, that was a really game-changing moment. Not to say that I didn't value myself, but honestly, if somebody said, outside of Blackboard, outside of, you know, your good academics, outside of everything else, what do you, Amonge Sinxoto, bring to the table? I had no answer for you, because all my answers were attached to my accolades, if that made sense. So to hear that from Michelle Obama, I thought, whoa, there's something that I'm missing here. There's really something that I'm missing here. And the thing that made me a little bit sad was, are there not other people feeling this way? And how many girls get the opportunity to, you know, go halfway across the world and hear it from Michelle Obama's mouth that you're valuable? I mean, if you don't, then are you sat there thinking, you know, that you're not bringing any individual value to the world? And also, when you're thinking around negotiations, it's such a vital thing, because it's great to know what other people have to offer you, but you've got to know what you have to offer them. And I think that was a game changer. You know, you've got to know what you're bringing to the table, because if you don't see value in yourself, no one else will see value in you. So that was a really big shift, I think, in my story, in how I chose to run my organization as well. So I mean, like I said, you know, all these travels, all these different engagements, they were really, you know, looking good for my CV. But I think after that happened, I started to think, no girl should have to travel across the world to hear that they're valuable. You know, with Blackboard Africa and everything that I did, I wanted to make sure that those sentiments and those words of encouragement, you know, that platform to see value in yourself is something that is available in your own environment. So you don't have to step out of it to see that. You know, you should be able to kind of get that affirmation, because I know, you know, we're not all from the same circumstances. I was lucky enough to have, you know, very supportive parents, but, you know, everyone has different circumstances. And I think it's really important that you do have a space that, or a platform or for people who are going to be like-minded and kind of carry you through in that way. We started this program called Pass the Baton, and essentially it's all around the metaphor of a relay race. Like, you know, we're all in this together. We all have our leg to run. We all have our part to run, and we've got to go hard. But at the same time, when it comes your time to pass it on and to share that information and to give that to someone else, you've also have to let go. Otherwise, we'll never get there in the end. So yeah, I think that's kind of been my story around negotiation, and how it's taught me a lot about myself and about how I should be interacting with the world. So yeah, that's me.
Wow. That's
Unmute and give her
the first thing that came to mind.
the flowers this way. This from the East Africans. This is like
Amonge, thank you so very much. My heart is so full right now, just listening to you, and I could selfishly hug you all to myself the entire day. But this is not about, you know, me, and I've been lucky with Rita to have a bit of a chat with you. I invited all of us, mentors and mentees, and I gather, you know, your story was so compelling. There's not one single person who wanted their fingers on their keyboard anywhere, even though the invitation was for people to, you know, put their comments and questions and insights as you were talking to us. And so I'm really now in this time, you know, I think Amonge, you have what, about 15, 20 more minutes with us?
Yeah.
Ladies, please, I think an incredible story, amazing story, as Rita says. Please, I don't know, do we have put your hand up on Zoom? We should, we don't.
Yeah,
but maybe if I can hear, even if it's one word that kind of something that happened for you as you listened to Amonge, what might that be? If I can take some comments and questions. Tahira says, awesome story, amazing, says Rita. Kylie, I could see you had video on, so I could see you were like just nodding as much as I was. So something in what you shared, Amonge, has resonated, I think, with everybody here. But this is about all of us. So let's hear your voices. Amonge has, with her very powerful voice, I think, shared her story. And I don't want to go into kind of summarizing what she said before we get those insights that emerged for all of you. What are your thoughts, ladies? Andiswa, I see you there. You want to step in and say something? Please go ahead.
Yes, I have a question for Amonge. Seeing that you're young, like myself, how did you deal with that fear of starting something new? And how did you get that strength to tell people, even people that are way older than you, about your ideas and everything that you are thinking of? How did you work around that?
Thank you for that question. I think I just started to think around my youth being a massive advantage. There are people much older than me who aren't very clear on their vision, or, you know, on the journey that they're taking. And you know, they realize it when they're 50 and they have responsibilities and children and so much going on. And I think, I mean, obviously it's something that I want to succeed, but the stakes are my own. Do you know what I mean? I had no responsibilities. I had no obligations to anyone, so to speak. So me being young meant that I could really play and I could run. And I think what you'll be really surprised to find is that people are looking for young voices that are constructive and insightful. You know, a lot of people tend to generation into, you know, we're the reckless or whatever, but I think to hear a young person come out of our generation, it really excites people. It really does. So I think people are eager to listen, but as soon as you get through that door, make sure that you're ready to represent as well. Because when people take a chance on you, it also, not to put pressure on it, but I mean, it shapes how they're going to interact with young people going forward. So if I take a chance on this young person and they absolutely disappointed me and they couldn't meet their deadlines and they couldn't do this, or they couldn't communicate, or they couldn't whatever, then the way that I see it, all young people are, you know, totally just not worth it. But if I do take a chance on a young person and they're diligent and they're hard workers and, you know, they follow through, then I'm going to be more inclined to give more young people a chance. So not to put pressure on it, but it does kind of get bigger than you at some point. So I think, yeah, that's how I've been thinking around it, and that's what's helped me.
Thanks for that, Amonge. So here's a question, and there's two questions which are very similar, but the one puts us back into your own home, Amonge. You talked about how, you know, initially your dad said, no way, right? But mom, and as you were talking about your mom, I thought, yay for mothers, right? But she kind of put you to the side and said, you're going to do this. So the question that Valerie's asking is, but how did you persuade your dad? And I think for many of us, and particularly, you know, in Black families where a father figure is somebody who is to be listened to and obeyed, how did you get your dad on your side without seeming defiant and rude and just not listening to his voice of wisdom? How did you get that right?
Yeah, that was quite a mountain to climb, I will say. But having my mom on my side really did help, because she was kind of the voice of reason. I came to him after I kind of had all the plans in place. Not the plans, so to speak, but to say, this is my plan to make it happen. So when my dad says no, and I really, really want to say yes, I want to show him why yes is the better answer. So I came to him and I said, look, I've got a sponsor for my flights and my accommodation. I came to him and I said, look at my exam timetable. Luckily, it worked out that the trip was 2 days after my last exam. Like, could not believe the luck. So, you know, I came to him and I had my whole story straight. And I also had my grandparents on a live. I probably should, yeah, he wasn't so pleased with that, because I kind of went over his head. But it also does help to have a voice from someone that they respect as well. Because my grandparents were like, I mean, she's got it all in order. She's got it all in place. And I don't think it's a bad thing if it's not going to interfere with her studies. I promise they wouldn't. So yeah, I think that's how I got him to eventually agree.
It's like saying the boss of the boss spoke, right? So you can't say no. So among a few people have noted that, you know, you have such clarity in your insights, and there's, like you said, you know, your vision is quite clear, it's quite compelling, and to your own point, this is something that people, even who are older, struggle with for a long time. You know, I've even joked at times and said, you know, I still talk to 6-year-olds and ask them what they want to do as they get older, because I still haven't figured my own life out. But the question around clarity is this: how did you, and especially at such a young age, how did you know, and this is Kylie's question, how did you know what you wanted to do? How did that clarity of vision of thought come about for you around Blackboard, and I think just around generally where you find yourself now?
Yeah. I think my parents were really helpful with that, because I think a lot of the time we ask young people, you know, what do you want to be? And that's a great question. But my parents always ask me, what do I want to do? Because they know that, you know, not that who you are changes, but I think different experiences affect you differently. And, you know, you change your mind, you go through swerves and curves in your life. So, you know, it's not necessarily on deciding who you want to be after, you know, you're in matric. That's not necessarily the case, but what do you want to do? What do you want to do with your life? And I honestly didn't know until I was already doing it. So after we had started Blackboard Africa, I really, really understood how important it was to me to see young people being uplifted and being developed. And I just thought, this is it. This is what I want to do with my life. I thought I wanted to do drama. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I mean, I just thought all these crazy things. Not that they're crazy, but for me, once I knew what I wanted to do, there was absolutely no other path. So, I mean, just try things as well. And I think sometimes we really put pressure on people to be like, know everything when you're done with matric, and that's just not the case. So I know what I want to do in terms of, you know, making sure that young people are uplifted, but I also struggled with choosing my subjects and varsity. I mean, so it's really a journey, and it's okay to not know. It's really, really, really okay to not know. But I think trying different things and testing out different methods, or different, go intern somewhere, and not even intern, but just say, please, can I just shadow for a day, and kind of getting a look into some of the things that you want to do, so that you know what you're kind of signing up for. And I think once you know that core of what you want to do, then I think everything starts to fall in line.
I think what you just said reminds me of a quote, and I think it's Martin Luther King Jr. who said, you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step, right? And then you figure it out as you go along. That's what to me sounded like. And we get so stuck in going, I need to have all the answers. You don't. You have to have that seed and then see how it grows. Now, guys, I want to invite the voices of the mentees into the space. Amonge is a peer. She is a young person, as she says, you still kind of finding your way, at heart, this is me, this is the thing that I'm passionate about, but it keeps evolving and changing. So I want to hear your voices, mentees. Amonge is here. I know she would love to engage with you also. It might not be face to face, but I know for sure it will be voice to voice, and certainly heart to heart. So any one of the mentees perhaps who wants to step in and ask a question, offer a comment, something that stood out for you as Amonge was sharing, or something of your own journey that you want to share with Amonge that kind of meets her story somewhere along the way. Any thoughts as we move along and do that? So Amonge, as perhaps, some of the mentees think up what their questions might be, I want to reference what we will be talking about later, which is this U framework that Rita mentioned to you in our call the other day. And it talks around understanding. So it's an acronym, YOU. U is about yourself, understanding what you stand for. O is about, understanding where I am really serving others. And then the last U hones in on the actual understanding itself, understanding my environment, understanding others. In your story, you talked about bringing your parents along. You talked about bringing partners along, and things kind of just growing from there, people who supported you, even people who supported you from unexpected places, including your friend's dad, who then spoke to people at his company and so on. What is key for you in making sure that you bring people along with you as you evolve? Because it's easy to say you must understand people. What does that mean in very real terms? How do you make that connection, whether it's been with your partners or the co-founders of Blackboard or anyone else who is part of your story? How did you do that?
I think I'm quite a perfectionist. So, I mean, in my schoolwork, I dreaded group work, just because I couldn't have full control of, what was happening. But I think going into the space of the work that I was doing, I really started to understand that nothing is achieved by one person. So you always hear this story, like one man can change the world or whatever, but that's honestly not true. It's just not. You need people, and people need you. So like I said, as much as, you recognize value in other people and what they bring to the table for you, but you've got to know what you bring to the table as well. But it's got to be a collaboration. Nothing moves without a collective. So, I mean, for me, it was my parents and my family, but it may not be for you. I was lucky enough to have those people kind of handed to me, so to speak. But, you can find your own people, friends, just like-minded people. That was really, really important, just for my journey, in terms of understanding that it just made everything much, much easier, because I know I couldn't do it alone. So I didn't try to, and I didn't frustrate myself by trying to do that.
I think you touched on something we've said before in this mentorship circle, which is know your village, right? And if you don't know your village, what I'm really learning from you and taking from you is create that village. Find the people who will stand with you and who will hold you up as you take up space. Yeah. Now, Amonge, you've gotten a question was asked here by Ntebogang, who is one of our mentees. Where do you get your motivation? And I think I want to stretch that question a little bit is, where do you get your motivation as a young person? Yes, you are running Blackboard, and you said on top of that, you've started sort of, I'm not sure if it's an initiative within the initiative of, pass the baton, but you are Amonge, you're a young person with a life of your own, right? You are changing, you are learning, you are growing, you've got schoolwork, you've got, the parentals who want this, how do you keep it all together and stay not just afloat, but really fired up to keep moving?
Yeah, I mean, this is a two kind of folded question for me because I think I know where I'm pushing it from, and I know how important this is to me. So it kind of becomes bigger than me. And in that sense, it's pretty easy for me to prioritize it because I know how important it is. I know when I enter a room, I can't afford to hesitate. I can't afford to stutter because I really, 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 this is something that I believe in, and this is something that is one of my deepest kind of passions, so to speak. But at the same time, I'm just a person. So I know I presented a story that, is very true. But I think right now where I'm at, COVID hit me quite hard in terms of Blackboard. We got a great partnership, but they wanted a lot of structure from us. I mean, we kind of basically had to move from being, this 3-man organization to a proper NPC that can handle a corporate sponsor, which was just a massive shift for me. And then in the midst of that, I was doing second year and then COVID happened. So, I mean, I really, sometimes I can't. And, you gotta take that space up for yourself. I know I had a conversation with my team and I said, I need a week, don't call me, don't talk to me. Obviously, I can't do that with school because, they don't answer to me. But to the rest of my team, I just said, right now, I just need a week to refresh myself. So, I mean, it was a little bit before COVID, so I could still go see my friends, and I just went out to lunch, and, I did the little things that really just kind of relax me, taking long baths, and I just tried to relax because at the end of the day, I know I'm not going to be productive if I'm not focused, if I don't have a clear head, if I'm not prepared for what I'm going to do that day or what I'm going to do that week or that year, etc. So I think one way that I've been able to manage or to kind of balance everything is just knowing when I need a break and taking that break and allowing myself to take that break. Yeah.
So Amonge, as we wrap up, I think the question that I want to ask is around, this whole notion of influencers, and I'm speaking from the point of view of a Gen Xer, right? Because the minute I hear young people go influencer, I'm thinking, okay, another Kardashian, another whoever the influencers are. I have, a teenager and a preteen who go on and on about YouTube and the influencers on there, and it's a whole other world. But I think you've given such a wonderful spin to the idea of what influence is about moving people in a particular direction. Here you are a young person, a young woman, who has taken up space, but you spoke so very intently around the idea of know your worth, right? My work is not my value. My work is not my worth. I think that's what Michelle Obama was trying to get you guys, as young people to think about. You are so much more than just the work you put out in the world. What would you say to our mentors? Because again, I think it's such an easy thing to say to people, be confident, you know, you are beautiful, you bring so much into the world. But unless the person themselves believes, you know, the idea of I am worthy, it doesn't matter how beautiful everybody else tells them they are and how, you know, how appreciated they are. How do you stay grounded in who you are as Amonge? There's value that you hold, the space that you take up in the world where you say, I deserve to be here, because that's what you're saying. That's what your voice says to me. I deserve to be here. And you say it with clarity, yes, with confidence, but with a certain humility all at once. What do you say to these mentees who are, a few of them around the same age group as you, maybe a few younger, but you are all young people? How do you remain grounded in who you are, no matter what is happening all around you?
Yeah. That's a hard one because, you know, at the end of the day, I am a young girl, you know, growing up in the social media pressure. It's hard. And, you know, there's days that I wake up and I don't feel beautiful, or I don't feel smart, or I don't feel, you know, empowered. But I think I know I keep giving a lot of, you know, credit to my parents, but they're a massive, you know, they're a massive part of my life and the way that I think and the way that, you know, I am. But they've always just really pushed me to be happy with my choices and be happy with myself, maybe to their own detriment, because I know that I'm so stubborn. But I don't know, I think being confident is not something you just wake up and you are. I'll be honest, I hated high school. Not that I hated high school, but it just was not the fondest memories of my life. And I just thought, I'm going to get to varsity and I'm not going to care what everybody thinks. And I'm going to grow up and all of my doubts and all of my worries are just going to fall behind me. And varsity came and, you know, that didn't happen. Being confident is something that, you know, you've got to work at. It's kind of like a muscle that you've got to exercise. So basically what I was doing is saying, I've never gymmed a day in my life, but I'm going to go run a 10K marathon. That's not how it works. You know, it's something that you have to exercise. So just try it. You know, one thing that I don't know, that's just your decision. So I know that I really like to do crazy hairstyles, and a lot of my friends and a lot of my teachers were not very happy with it, but those little decisions that I was happy with, and I was happy so much so that I was able to handle any criticisms that would come my way. That was a practice. That was me exercising that muscle. So just walk into a room and say, you know, I really care nothing for what anybody has to say about me or what I look like or this or that. Do that one day in one class in one session. Just don't pay any mind to what people might be thinking about you. And then do it again the next day and the next day and the next day. And soon you'll start to see, you know, yeah, you just got to do you. And you're the only you in the world. I mean, I don't think we recognize how valuable that is. I know people, a lot of the time, my teachers tried to explain it to me using science. Like, you know, the miracle that it is that you are exactly who you are. It's honestly a miracle. So, I mean, you could have been anybody else, but you're you. So walk in that, love that, embrace that. Yeah.
Wow. So talking about confidence and being in a room and saying what you need to say and exercising that muscle. Mentees, I'm inviting you one more time. This is your space. And I know somebody might go, oh, I'm a little bit shy. And Amonge has just said it right now. Confidence is about challenging yourself, to have your voice heard, to put that into practice. Even if you think, I just want to say one word to her, or I just want to ask this question. I am curious about this, or I want to make this comment, whatever it might be. We literally have 5 minutes left with Amonge. So please, your space, your voice. Can I get somebody who hasn't yet shared? Andiswa asked a question earlier on. I'm seeing some comments from some of the mentees. Kylie, your question, but I want you to ask the question. You are curious about whether Amonge has any other goals that she has set, but let the question come from you. Please, Kylie, step into the circle with Amonge and let's hear it from you.
So I wanted to know, like, what goals do you still have to set? Because, like, even though you're doing this, do you still believe that you want to set more goals?
Yeah, no, for sure. First of all, thank you for your question. Yeah, I mean, setting goals is something that never stops. Like Mabatu said, us growing as individuals is something that never, ever, ever stops. So I have goals till this day. So yes, I've done a lot in terms of Blackboard. There's so much more that I want to do. There's so much I want to do academically. I'm doing my second year at varsity right now, but I want to do my master's. I want to do my master's overseas. So, I mean, there's so many goals that I have for my life that aren't just in terms of what I'm doing or even when I'm studying. I want to have abs and little stuff. So yeah, I set goals every single day. But yeah, it's something that you've got to do because like I said, we'd never just stand still. We never finish growing. Like, that doesn't happen. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Kylie. So I'm going to take one more question. And in Essentia, I recognize you that you said what resonated was when Amonge said, value yourself. And you link that to be the change you want to see. Just make that connection for us, even as perhaps you want to pose a question to Amonge. What stood out? What is it in what Amonge said that then popped into your mind, the idea of being the change you want to see? Take us very quickly through that in Essentia, that insight, because I think it's a beautiful thing that you've captured, but I want to hear your voice and your own words, just really describing what went through your mind when Amonge said that. Eno, are you still on with us? Remember to unmute your mic as you contribute your point. Okay, I'm not hearing anything from Innocentia, and I'm not entirely sure if she might still be on. And Rita, I'm going to put you on the spot. I know we didn't talk about this, but I think, having had the chat with Amonge the other day, I want to leave it to you, perhaps on behalf of this mentorship circle, to offer our gratitude and our appreciation to Amonge, please.
Yeah, but before I do that, I want to draw, I think it's very important that the girls recognize the different strains, that we're not seeing the art of communication as being separate from courageous leadership, as being separate from negotiations. I'm really hoping you listened to Amonge, and Amonge, we talked to you about talking about negotiations, but what you've done so beautifully is you've pulled girls together. You started off by talking about how important your family is. You defined your village. That's the first thing we do in building trust. You then talked about under courageous leadership, because I was busy scribbling away. You talked about know your vision and know your purpose. We actually literally have that under courageous leadership. What do you want to do? All of that feeds into your mission. You also talked about the journey that you took, just starting out on Instagram, and then people, picked it up and things like that. And then you met Michelle Obama, came back to an even bigger Blackboard. We define the concept as navigating from pillar to pillar. And I don't know whether the girls remember the professor in Courageous Leadership, and she talks about that. No one knows the straight journey they're going to take, and you said the same thing. But you just keep on moving on, moving on. So I'm hoping that that lesson was also taken up. You said, try it, just one thing, a little bit, exercise that confidence muscle, and then the confidence begins to grow. And that's what indeed turns you into a courageous leadership. You've talked a lot about your village. Like I said, that's from building trust for us, going into courageous leadership. And then you also gave us examples of why it's important to communicate effectively, which is the previous session that we did. You talked about being able to articulate for your dad and being clear. I have my ticket. The trip is after the exams. And you also talked about knowing who it is you're going to negotiate with. I loved your example of your mom. And then with regards to negotiation, you did address the why. You have to know what you want to offer. Bring it to the table. What are you bringing to the table? That's the you. And knowing your position of strength that you're negotiating from. And then the other, always asking yourself, what is the other person going to want to do? So I can't express my thanks enough on behalf of Girls for Girls. And don't be surprised if you now get 5 different calls for 5 different groups to ask you now to come and speak at their session. We've not had such a young person come and talk to us. And we thought that for the likes of Kylie and Tebogang and Jabulile, that we would bring a person that is closer to them. So thank you so much for taking us seriously. It is evident that you prepared well for it. And I'm hoping that not just the story, but even your presence and the way you delivered your story inspires the girls. I know it did. We're looking at the chat boxes.
Thank you so much.
And this is not the end. Like we said, we are interested in Blackboard. I think we've just become part of your village. So I think on the part of Girls for Girls, okay, so we are back.
Thank you so much. I think we're all back, and yeah, we had a very fruitful discussion in our circle, and I hope we all remembered, we kind of remembered at the end for each circle just to ask one person to be the representative to really just summarize what came out of the session for them. So Rita, how many groups did we end up with?
We ended up with 2 groups, basically your group and my group, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And we didn't pick anyone, so we will freestyle it.
Okay, so let's allow someone from your group to go first. We won't have to negotiate for this one.
I know, okay.
Anyone.
Okay, so group 1, the ladies that were with us, we had Tebogang, we had Jabulile, and we had Katlego. I think in the spirit of the art of communication and finding your voice, let's hear one key thing that you learned from each of you in the session we just came back from. I don't know whether they're here. Katlego is definitely here. Katlego, you can go first, followed by Ntebogang. Okay, good, they're here. And they're all there. Please remember to put on your microphone. Katlego?
Yes. Okay, what I learned during the session is that when you negotiate, you have like plenty of options. You don't have one option, but a lot of options.
Do you remember what those options are? Do you want to give examples?
Can I pass?
Okay, Jabulile? Jabulile, unmute yourself, please, my love.
Yes.
Okay.
Is this what I took away from the room?
Yes.
Okay. What I took away from the room is that it's important to distinguish like the different aspects of the you negotiation strategy, because sometimes you can get confused between like the interest of you as a person negotiating and the interest of the other person, who can either be your ally or who you're trying to negotiate. So I think it's important to like be 100% sure of whose interest you're bringing forward, and who's who in negotiation.
Very good. And that was your particular lesson, right? Tebohan? Tebohan? You're on mute.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned that we have to also consider other people's feelings, and then when we negotiate, we don't have to be emotional. We just have to be clear and make the person understand why we want this particular thing, and then consider their feelings as well. Yeah, and then of course find an agreement on what you guys are gonna do. Yeah.
Okay, so you raised a very important point of building on the other skills we learned under Art of Communication. Fantastic. So those were the 3 mentees we had in our group. Over to Mabatu.
Thank you, Rita. From our group, we asked Innocentia to be our representative. I hope she managed to get back in. Innocentia, are you there? Oh, fantastic. Innocentia, please go ahead.
Just unmute yourself.
Oh, ladies, from today's session, I picked up a few points. So, I picked up that we all can't achieve everything on your own. So you need the support and help from people. Think about people who can be your allies, people who can support you and stand with you. And from Amonge's story, she said, we need to focus and consider our own goals and interests. So you need to think about your strengths and what you're good at and what you actually enjoy doing. So I'll leave, and in conclusion, ladies, I think we need to know that our present situation is not our final destination. Whatever challenges you are going through, you'll overcome it if you believe in yourself. So yeah.
Great, thanks, Innocentia. Can you also touch on a little bit more specifically on some of the examples? So in our group, we had different scenarios of where people might want or need to negotiate. Can you maybe just bring that in as well for us very quickly, Innocentia? Just the lessons that came out of the scenarios that people shared, including your own scenario that you shared with us.
Oh, is it Tahira? She spoke about the part where when they're watching TV and she think, yeah, it was you, Tahira. You said that if you guys are watching TV and say, for example, you have a show to watch later and your mom wants to watch a show now, it's best that they record your show and then later onwards you will watch the show. And from my side, I spoke about idols. I wanted to go to idols, so I had to speak to my family about it. But I didn't really get clarity and they didn't give me precisely what I wanted. So because I want to do it, I'll first work on it before I go to idols because they say that I'm not mentally fit. And there was the other one that spoke about when you're negotiating at the shop when you want to buy a jacket and you ask the owner of the shop to make it to lower the price, and then say for instance you will recruit people. Yeah, that's all I remember.
Thank you so much, Innocentia. So
Mabatu, could I think one of the big lessons that we learned was the one about the options, which Kaseko did not elaborate on, but actually, we came up with so many, and I think that's the point, is that there are always many options. And I just want to set the stage, and then each of the people who were in the group, because that's how many options we came up with, can share with us what the options were. So this was a scenario. Katlego gets 2 gigs of data every week, guaranteed from her mom. But older brother wants to get a hold of the 2 gigs. So I want to invite my group to explain very briefly what the different options were. 1 each. Who wants to go first? And the mentors are invited to participate as well. Jabulile, do you want to give the first option?
Yes, the first option was that they could take 1 gig each because it is So they could always go 50-50.
Okay, so that was the 50-50, 1 gig each, right? That's one option. Ntebogang? Please remember to unmute.
Sorry, what's the question?
The options, we're talking about, we're sharing examples of the different options we had around the data. And this way you're going next, Kini, you're going next, Chabi saying you'll go after Kini.
I think another option was that they can negotiate, the two siblings can negotiate with the mother to give them more data.
Very good, more than 2 gigs, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Kinelwe?
Another option would be to talk to the dad instead.
To buy additional data.
Yes.
Very good. Ntabi saying, Kini?
Yeah, one would be to give it to the other and say, okay, you can have it all. Let me, yeah.
Okay. Kini?
Okay, I was going to say that one.
What about the night
data? You too, Eta.
But the night data. So the other option was that one uses day data and one uses night data, because there's now 2 options when buying data.
More than 2 gigs of data. That's what I understand.
So the night data has more gigs. So it's just that it's at night. But the one that would that needs it probably the least during the day is the best person to use it at night.
Okay. Is Yavini here?
No,
she's not.
No.
Okay, so the last option was, anyone else from my group? Remember the last option? You can?
Yeah, the other option was that they had to share the day 1 gig, and then so that they can also use, I think we had 2 of the simil, then also use the data.
Okay, and this one, last one?
And the other one could have 1.5 and the other one just have 0.5 gig.
Right, it doesn't have to be split 50-50, yeah? Okay, and this one, the last one? Isn't this one there? Okay, so the last option is that you can walk away. The brother might have been so convinced by the daughter, by the sister, who makes such a compelling case, and she decides, you know what, she actually deserves the data. And I think that's an option that I hear a lot of echo someone. I think it's an option. Yeah, it's an option that a lot of us forget about, that you don't have to negotiate with someone else, especially if it makes you feel uncomfortable, or if you're convinced, it is an option to walk away. But the walk away is particularly for tough situations. And as young people, I don't know what you face, but like in our day, maybe sometimes you had family members who wanted to make you do things that you're not comfortable with. Maybe you have a boyfriend who is making you do things that you don't want to do. Remember that a negotiation doesn't mean you have to give and he has to give. Remember that it can also mean that I'm so uncomfortable with the situation, I don't need to be here, I'm going to walk away. So that's something that I wanted to make sure comes out with the options. Over to you, Mabatu.
Thank you, Rita. And I think you've nicely covered a lot of what also came out of our circle session, which is, yes, what's in it for me and the other person. But I think that all important, if it doesn't sit with my values, I have the option to walk away. So ladies, we're about to wrap up, and I want to bring YOU into the fold, just as something for all of us to remember as we walk away from today's session. Remember, negotiation is about benefits and burdens, benefits and burdens. What is it in it for me, but what do I also have to give? What's the benefit? What's the burden? For the other party, what is the benefit they are gaining, but what do they also bring to the table? Underpinning that is that understanding, right? How well do I understand others? But I can only do that if I'm listening, right? Are there constraints and things that I need to think about? how well am I communicating my own needs? So it's about yourself, others, and understanding. Now, at the end of our sessions, we always like to leave you with a call to action, because knowledge for knowledge's sake, as I always say to people I work with, is useless. Knowledge is meant to stir up something, to make a difference, to make a change. So here's my call to action, and I'm going to very quickly round it up by sharing a story with you. And you may have heard the story. It was told to me by a teacher who has had a lifetime impact on me. And it's a story, a fable about these mice and these cats. So the story goes like this. In a village far, far away, lived a group of mice rather, that was terrified of the village cat. Now, this cat had really run rampant, and he had destroyed nearly almost the entire population of these mice. It came a time where some of the younger mice said, enough is enough. If we don't do something about this cat, he's going to destroy the entire population. And so a meeting was called among the mice, and the idea was to talk about what it is they were going to do to make sure that this cat did not entirely annihilate or destroy the group of mice that was left. And so as they sat in their circle, everybody offering up a possibility, a solution of sorts around what could be done. You know, somebody said, you know what, maybe we just need to run a little bit faster, because, you know, we're going to starve if we don't get out of where we are to go and get food. So if we run as, you know, faster than the cat, he's not going to catch us. And he said, well, that's not going to work. You know, somebody said it's not going to work, because how many of our brothers and sisters have run as fast as they could and still the cat got them? So clearly that's not the solution. And then somebody else came, well, maybe we need to go out and find food at a time that he's not around. And then somebody else countered that and said, hang on, you know this cat is smart, right? He goes out at all hours of day and night. He seems to know more about us than we know about him. So this nighttime, daytime thing is not going to work. Anyway, they started all offering up solutions until one very little clever mouse said, I've got it. I've got it. Listen, everybody. How about, because the issue here is he's so stealthy, we never always know where he is. So how about we put a bell around the cat's neck? In that way, when he walks around, we can hear him and we can then react as quickly as possible. Whether that means we grab the food or we run away as quickly as possible, but the bell will let us know where he is. Fantastic. Round of applause. Everybody loved this solution. Until one old mouse who was sitting in the corner the whole time, hadn't said anything all the while, suddenly said, excuse me, everybody, can I just say something? I like this idea of putting a bell around the cat's neck. But one question from me, who is going to put the bell around the cat's neck? Silence. Nobody put their hand up, or I should say their little paw up, right? So here's the madness behind my story, ladies. The work that we are doing here together is not for its own sake. All of us are called to shift, to move, to make something happen. And yes, there are obstacles along the way, there are distractions along the way, the cats in our lives, in essence. It takes courage and it takes intention to move them. I asked us earlier to reflect on what it is we need to shift. What is it in our respective environments, whether that's family or work or school, wherever we find ourselves? What is the something that we need to negotiate about? The something we need to make happen. And we said, and this is Amonge's words to us, it's making it happen through persuasion. Who's the cat you need to persuade? Or what is the cat you need to persuade? Our call to action is to take the lessons from today, the lessons from the art of communication, from standing up as courageous leaders, and shifting those things that in our respective systems, as it were, need to be shifted. I don't know what that is for you. And so reflect a bit more on what I asked. Making something happen through persuasion. What is your something and who do you need to persuade? Can you step in courageously and put the bell around your cat's neck? Right, that's where I'm going to leave it for us today. But I also want you to think about one other thing that resonated so strongly for me as I was thinking about today. And it's from Maya Angelou, and I think it was Jablilo who read that powerful poem. Today I share a quote, and Maya Angelou said, "Develop enough courage so that you can stand up for yourself and then stand up for somebody else." And that's why I want to leave it for us today. Rita, I don't know if you have any more parting shots. If not, it will be a cheerio from my side. Rita, anything from you? Thank you so much, everybody, for indulging me and allowing me to be your facilitator for today. I had a wonderful time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mabatu. We appreciate it. It was nice hearing from another voice today, as opposed to the same old, same old. So as we separate, two things I'm going to kindly ask. As always, please complete the feedback form. But two, you will remember that Professor Hong talked about for you to be a powerful negotiator, you need to know your own strengths. And we're always short of time. But what I'd like to ask you to do, please, before you leave, the frame of this discussion, write down 2-3 things that you know are strengths about yourself. And then maybe when we start off next time round, we'll start off by sharing that and maybe shine a spotlight or ask you to shine a spotlight on someone else. It is always important. One of the things we want to make sure you do as mentees is to draw strength and to grow in courage, because that's what's going to make you an effective leader. So my two requests as we close out, please complete the feedback form, but in your booklets, please also write down a couple of the strengths